practicing trusting your intuition. And you touched on it before by making micro decisions. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So when you start working with your intuition, instead of, running towards a goal of being able to communicate with other beings on a telepathic level, why don't you just start with easy decisions in your daily life? Instead of making a shopping list, sometimes you just go with your gut feeling what you want to buy at the grocery store. If someone asks you if you want to go out for dinner, instead of thinking about all the thousand things you have to do before, just feel like, what am I feeling like today? Yeah, why not? And also I think saying no to things is also intuition based instead of like looping around about everything around it. Just like go with the first answer that comes to your mind.
Welcome to The Air is Free, the podcast that helps you stop gripping what you can't control and start embracing what you can. Join Frida Karsberg and me, Sue Willoughby, as we dive into real conversations about resilience, personal freedom, and finding your center in a chaotic world. Inspired by the Swedish expression Luften är fri, which means the air is free, this show is about letting go, trusting the process, and remembering that some things in life were meant to be free and limitless. So take a deep breath, let go of what's weighing you down, and let's get into it. Welcome back to this week's episode of Luften är fri, or better known as The Air is Free in English. So we are still on the topic of freedom, control, and inner peace. So today, and every week we talk a little bit about horses. We bring horses into this. And the reason we do this is because we both work with horses as our coaching partners, and we draw a lot of wisdom from them. So today we're going to really talk specifically about the wisdom of horses and trusting your instincts. I think the one thing that we overlook so very much is our intuition. And I'm sure Frida can speak to that as well. But I want to talk about how intuition, energy, and nonverbal communication shape our interactions and our decisions. And a lot of that comes with, how when we work with horses, it is a huge part of our coaching process. And because they're such intuitive animals. So the thing is, your intuition is wiser than your overthinking brain. So having said all of that, let's open this discussion up. Frida, how you doing this week?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm
It's a
very
fun
excited to
topic.
be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fun topic, and I think it's one that a lot of people can relate to. Uh, trusting your intuition, it ties back into all of the things we've talked about in previous weeks about, feeling vulnerable and everything, because I think that, people don't trust their intuition for a lot of reasons. And I think one of them is that they just don't believe what they're feeling and what they're thinking and what their gut is telling them, because they think they could think their way out of it instead. Like they'll reason their way out of doing something because they don't trust their intuition. What is your experience about that?
I mean, it's so true. And I think thinking back on my life, I've always had that intuition in me or gut feeling or whatever you want to call it. But I didn't always follow it because, you think to yourself, like, that's so weird. Why should I listen to my body when I have a brain to think with? But these days, I'm all for listening to your body and what the body is telling you because it's so smart and it knows so much. And you just have to start listening inwards, and then a lot of things will unfold and feel easier to deal with, and blah blah blah. It's but no.
Blah, blah, blah.
So, I can no, but I mean I can go on forever and ever about
Oh,
this topic because I think it's so there's so much we can learn from the body, and that's also what I'm trying to teach my clients, whether it's Reiki or Equus coaching. It's like you have to trust your body more. What is your body telling you? Play with the thought of colors or feelings or whatever comes up for you that it's easy to take in, and then play with that how the body communicates with you.
So so how do you think intuition enters our being, right? When we're kids, we don't, we didn't think, we didn't overthink everything. And I think that's kind of what happens as you get to be an adult, whether it's, you have some intuitive sense when you're a kid, and then, you know, it gets kind of pushed out of you or down or something. But it sounds like you're telling me that intuition comes from within the body. So, for example, if I'm faced with a decision, or if you're faced with a decision,
Mhm.
um, and let's, how do you come to that decision? Like, if you're trying to work through something, and you're using your intuition, how
Mhm.
does that present to you?
Well, I mean, you can play with it as a start. So if you want to learn how to trust your intuition, you can do something that we call, you know, the word, so I forget it all the time, micro decisions, right? You can, for example, if you go out for an ice cream, instead of like reading the list and thinking so much, what's the best, blah, 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 just go with like, what do I feel like eating today? Oh, vanilla bean. Great. Go with the vanilla bean. Things that like just play with it for a minute and see where that takes you. When it comes to bigger decisions, I like to I wouldn't say meditate, but I like to sit with whatever I have to make a decision and just give myself time to feel in my body how it's feeling. Do I get like a warm feeling, an exciting feeling, or do I feel like an icky feeling? That's like a pretty
Hmm.
good compass to navigate on your intuition and uh, how it can help you. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
that's interesting. And I remember when I was first studying Reiki, it was a lot of that, like energetically, like what, and I also did something like called like muscle testing and stuff. And I think that's a little bit of your intuition as well, and it comes from your body. Um, and I'm not explaining this very well, but your body does react to certain things. Like if someone sticks broccoli in your face, you might, your body may be like, ooh, ooh, like broccoli, but somebody sticks ice cream in your face and you're like, that sounds good. However, at the same time, the broccoli may be better for you, right? And yeah, so that was a bad example, but I think I get it about the body thing. It's kind of like your gut, right? Your
Yes,
gut reaction.
it's
And
the same.
that's how I think of it. And that is, your gut is part of your body, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, but how many times have you done something, right? Or you've been presented with a decision or a thing, and you talk yourself out of one thing, like you over process it, you overthink it, and you go in a different direction, and then you're like, shit. I wish I had listened to my intuition
Yeah.
because this thing happened.
Yeah. So what is usually when it comes to me, what is different from like trusting my intuition, whereas doing it, making the wrong decision, or however you want to phrase it. It's usually because then I start to think about what the people around me are gonna think if I make this decision, right? And then I take in everything around me, like, is this good for them? Or, what will people think of me if I do this? All sorts of thing. And then what happens? I suddenly stop thinking about my own needs and think about how people will see me if I make the right decision.
Okay, that's interesting too. Yeah. I think of things when I've had an intuitive hit and I haven't listened to it.
Yeah, tell us
I think
about
I've
the
told you
car.
this before. I think I've told you about this before, but for example, I got a new car. And so I was trying to be very protective of this car, and I parked in a parking garage, and I found a spot that was an end spot, and I figured if I park the car here, it's going to be safe and nothing's going to happen. And as I was backing into this end spot that I thought was going to be the best thing, I looked across the way and there were other spots that I could have parked like in a parallel situation. And I immediately said to myself, no, no, no. If I park the car over there, someone's going to back into it. Right. So I parked where I overthought that it was going to be safe. And I came out of where I was, right at the end of the wherever, and I came to and there's a car parked like 2 inches from the side of my car, and there's a big stretch down the side of it, and I'm like, "Really?" So had I listened to my intuition and moved my car over to that other spot, probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? But that
Yeah.
was like just, a silly, and I have weird intuition kind of things, like, I'll put something down and I'm like, "If I put this down there, it's gonna get knocked over or it's gonna, whatever." But I put it down there anyway, and then it gets knocked over. I'm like, "Oh, shit."
Yeah. I
Those
mean,
are my
we all, yeah,
intuitive hits.
yeah. In my opinion, I think everyone has, can work with their intuition.
Oh,
And then it's
absolutely.
also like, where do you want to use it? Do you want to use it when you're part, all that stuff, or do you want to like extend, as if you start practicing fun things, if you like things like this, fun things will happen. And in my profession, I use it like on an everyday basis, helping my clients to, answer questions or, whatever comes up through the universe. And it's mind blowing and it's so much fun and it actually works. And I can't say enough how much I enjoy the intuition part of this work.
So give me an example of how that might come into play in a client situation without,
Yeah.
client confidentiality being.
Of course. So sometimes I do remote Reiki healing sessions because, I have clients that can't come to me or, it's somewhere where, I can't come to them. So I do it from my house to them. And it's basically because Reiki doesn't, Reiki flows wherever, so it doesn't matter where you are or what time zone you're in, it's still gonna get to whoever needs it, right?
Mhm.
And the really cool thing, the other day I had a client who she was asking me if I could help her. Um, she had some questions about her work situation, right? So I tuned in to her for the session, and what happens is I get like images in my third eye, or when I close my eyes, I can see it's almost like little movies showing for me. Um, and when the session is over, I share with my client what I saw with not any judgment, and I just give them the message that has been sent to me, and just this time it really made sense, and she was like, "This is so good because whatever the thing I told her totally makes sense, and that was the thing she was thinking about that she had to do, but she didn't have the courage to maybe take the step." But as I was able to tell her exactly what she was thinking about, she's like, "Okay, that makes sense. I think I need to make this step to be able to continue doing my work." Does that make any
So
sense?
yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you are the person is getting or has been receiving some sort of an intuitive hit that
Yes.
they may have been ignoring, right?
Yes.
And you connect with, through Reiki with their energy,
Mhm.
and you then receive the message that they have also been receiving, right? This is just my interpretation,
Yeah.
and then you can relay that back to them, and then say, and then they realize, oh, that's the thought that I've been having the entire time. I just discarded it, or disregarded it, I should say. And but now that you bring it up, okay, maybe there's some validity there.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I think also because maybe not everyone has the tools to communicate with whatever spirits or guides that needs to communicate with you. I'm just like a conduit, or I'm a helping hand when it comes to that. So I'm
Helping
just
mind.
a messenger.
Yes, exactly. So, like, when we talk about horses, right? How how do you think, or why do you think horses are so intuitive? If they are. I mean, I believe that they are, but, why do we think that, why do we use them in that intuitive way?
Great question. No, but I believe so because horses cannot speak our language, right? They have to express themselves with their body, so they use their senses more than, I'm not saying that they're not using their brain, of course they do, but they tap into other things than just the thinking part of living. So they're also like feeling into what's good, true to them. And I think that makes them a very intuitive being. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. They do. They're like sensory beings, right? They just take all of that information in through all of their senses. Their skin, their ears, their eyes, their smell, their everything. I mean, everything is information to them. And then they trust the information that they're getting because they're so present and they're so in their bodies. And then they act accordingly. And then they release it.
Yeah, so easy.
It's so simple
Yeah.
because things don't get stuck up in their brain the way we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes I think just be like a horse. Just be like a horse.
He's a horse. I actually told someone that one time, and this was a person who was a horse trainer. I said, they were talking about something and they were stuck in this loop in their head. And I'm like, horses, right? Yeah. I'm like, be the horse.
Be the horse.
He went, oh, yes. Oh, I get it now. I be the horse. I'm like, you be the horse. Let go of that crap and be the horse. Yeah. Move on.
Mm.
That's funny. So how do you think that, we talked about it a little bit. You mentioned it earlier. Practicing trusting your intuition, and you touched on it before by making micro decisions. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So, when you start working with your intuition, instead of, running towards a goal of being able to communicate with other beings on a telepathic level, why don't you just start with easy decisions in your daily life? Like, instead of making a shopping list, sometimes you just go with your gut feeling what you want to buy at the grocery store. If someone asks you if you want to go out for dinner, instead of thinking about all the thousand things you have to do before, just feel like, what am I feeling like today? Yeah, why not? You know? And also, I think saying no to things is also intuition based instead of like looping around about everything around it. Just like go with the first answer that comes to your mind. Things like
Yeah,
that.
you mentioned something about that before, like not overthinking it and doing what you think somebody wants you to do.
Hmm.
Just
Instead
go
of
with it.
feeling what you want to do.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think I think that's great. And trust that first thing that comes into your mind and into your body, like what like and we do this all the time. We do this all the time. We make decisions and we either do make an intuitive decision unconsciously, or we stop and we think ourselves out of it and do something else.
Mm.
And then I do that. I mean, I have done that in the past, and I do that. So I think learning to trust your gut is exactly right. Like you said, you go out to dinner, and instead of looking at every single thing on the menu and then talking to the waiter and saying and then asking everybody else, what do you want? What do you want? What do you? Because it's inevitable that after all of that deliberation, you order something, and then you look at your friend's plate and you're like, shit, that's what I was gonna have. I wish I wish I'd ordered that instead, right? Well, then just order it next time and don't be dinking around.
Yeah. I think it's also like today's society, and we have so many choices. Everyone is having some kind of FOMO, the fear of missing out on the best good things. It's overwhelming. So, I like to stick with basics sometimes because it's not, gonna mess up anything. So, yeah, it's tricky to
Yeah,
navigate today's world for sure.
it is, and we do have a lot of choices, and I think that does like overwhelm our little pea brains a lot, and and there's so many other things that come into play rather than just saying, I don't want to do that. Right? Kids do it all the time. You see them, no, right? You get to ask a toddler, you hand them something, they're like, no. They throw it across the room. You're like, okay.
I know.
They
That's
don't sit
what
there
I
and
want to
be
do
like, I
sometimes.
don't know. They want me to play with this, but I don't really want to, but I'm going to do it anyway. So,
I mean, yeah,
so learning to trust your intuition is super helpful. And once again, it's not easy, but once again, it's all about taking what?
turtle steps.
Baby steps, turtle steps.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Try and go through a day and just and just make those quick micro decisions and see what happens.
Yeah. That's exciting. You never
Don't
know.
come back. Don't come back at us if bad things happen. No, I'm just kidding. But just little things, even just little things, little decisions. Be impulsive. Be, if something is drawing you in, and this is kind of how I end up doing crazy stuff. Yeah, you want to jump out of an airplane? Sure. Yeah, let's do that. Being curious and following that curiosity without overthinking it will allow you to get out of your comfort zone, get out of your, safety zone, whatever. What else were we calling it? Comfort zone, safety
Control
zone,
zone.
control zone. Yes, exactly. So trust your intuition this week and try just letting it flow and, have fun with it. Let us know where you end up.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm so curious. Please let us know.
if you end up in jail, don't call. I'm kidding. Just try trusting your intuition and just with little things.
Yeah.
Do the first thing that comes to mind and see what happens.
Yeah. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're
Okay.
happy to answer. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, this has been a fun episode. Thank you so much. And I hope this has resonated with you out there somehow, some way. If it has, share it with a friend. If it hasn't, share it with a friend. Maybe it'll resonate with them. You never know. And we will see you back here next week. Trust your intuition and show up.
Great. Bye.
That's it for today's episode of The Air is Free. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about, something to let go of, and maybe even a little more space to breathe. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, rate and review the podcast because it helps more people find us and join in the conversation. And if something resonated with you, share it on social media and be sure to tag us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can follow us on Instagram, hit us up on our websites. Just come, say hi, send us a message, or let us know what topics you'd love to hear more about. Until next time, take a deep breath, let go of what you can't control, and remember, Luften er free.